government want to resume, want to go back to the classroom. And we are calling on that government to do what is needful immediately.
Welcome back to Sahara TV. My name is Rudolf Okonkwo. We are continuing our ongoing discussion on the activities at the National Conference, which is going on in Abuja at this point. And we have today a special guest. He is a delegate representing the Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs at the National Conference. 2 weeks ago, he made a speech at the floor of the National Conference that made all the delegates to stand up and clap against the rules of the conference. Let's watch a brief clip from that speech.
We come in brotherhood as brothers, friends, to solve our common problems, not as adversaries. We come against exploitation of religion and religious sentiments. We come against stereotyping, stigmatizing, and dehumanizing of each other and of any group. We come against the use of religion as a political decoy and as a distraction for the critical things that bedevil our nation. I pray that at the end of this conference, we will all grow in our humanity, our respect for each other. Thank you for your attention.
Mohammed Nurdeen Lemu is the Assistant Administrative Secretary and Welfare Projects Inspector of the Islamic Education Trust, Mina, Niger State. He also sits at the Transparency Award Committee of the Ford Foundation, West Africa. He's also a fellow of the African Leadership Institute in Aspen, United States. Mr. Lemu, welcome to Sahara TV.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okonkwo. It's my pleasure.
Let me start by asking you, this week has been a very sad one in Nigeria with the Abuja bombing on Monday and the kidnapping of school children in Borno State. How were these incidents received at the National Conference?
Well, firstly, it was very shocking news that while we were trying to deliberate ways forward for the nation, it seems as if the ship was, so to speak, sinking. It was really sad, and so it was a consensus on the floor that the actions of those people were condemned just as the perpetrators were condemned. So we received it with a lot of shock, a lot of sadness. People went to visit the site of the bombing to see what had happened, to see what assistance they could give. People among the delegates had the opportunity to do that. And really, it was one of those very sad moments, things that one would not have believed possible 10 years ago. It's a very rude and sad awakening to how bad things have gotten in the country.
Now, in so many ways, the state of Nigeria today is very precarious. Does that add any sense of importance to the task in front of the delegates at the National Conference and any sense of urgency to what you people are doing over there?
Oh, absolutely. I think it brought the pain that's going on in other parts of the country, particularly in the northeastern region of Nigeria, and what's been going on there for quite some time. By seeing the thing coming to the doorstep of the federal capital once more, I think everybody felt something has to be done. This is not a northeastern problem. This is a Nigerian problem. And I think a lot of the delegates started becoming even more impatient with the pace at which the proceedings were moving. Of course, to move with such a group, there is a maximum amount of speed you can take, but you could sense the frustration that something needs to be done, and it needs to be done urgently. And yeah, I think it did make everybody take the work more seriously. Some even contemplated visiting the president, putting more pressure, you could see, even though the conference was supposed to be an opportunity to give ideas that would be implemented by others, some were so touched and hurt by what had happened, they wanted to step into the shoes of people in the House of Assembly, so to speak. So there was a lot of frustration, and people just had to have faith that those in charge of decision-making, of implementation, would also wake up and take their responsibilities more seriously.
We'll get to what happened there this week, but let me ask you, a lot of Nigerians were disappointed that the president went campaigning the day after in Kano. What is your take on that? The idea that a day after a major incident like that bombing in Abuja, that he went campaigning in Kano?
I think it's one with a lot of mixed feelings. For some people, what happened was so horrific that everything else should have come to a standstill. Others felt this is not the first time and life must go on. And I guess from the political point of view of the president, though I can't speak on his behalf, he probably was thinking that the campaign trail was a way towards a more longer-term way of solving the problem. But definitely we felt the incident was not given the kind of attention it should have been given. Having said that, I understand when the president came back, he did go and visit some of the victims. So I think, unfortunately, Nigeria is a big country. There's always something happening, and it's difficult not to disappoint some people when it comes to dilemmas of what to do when you've organized such things. So it's unfortunate, but I guess he was advised with the best advice he had available.
All right, let's look at this, because before we get into the activities, I want to ask one more question now. The Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs, at the beginning of the conference, complained about the number of Muslim delegates who are members of the National Conference. Is your group happy now have you been reassured that it wouldn't matter at the end of it, that the important thing is to join this discussion and come up with solutions to our problems?
No, I don't think the group is happy. Muslim delegates are just about 38%. Actually less than 38% of the total number of delegates. So the concern has been that if we were to come to vote on certain issues, particularly if those issues do not respect the sensitivities of Muslims sufficiently, that Muslims would be at a numerical disadvantage when it came to the issue of voting. So they've really not been happy about that. But I think as we move on, there are a lot of people who, if they see reason in a point, if they understand and there's sufficient time for each side to make its case clear, we've got enough Nigerians among the delegates who really care for peace and progress, and the agreement that decisions will be only taken forward if there is up to 70% vote in favor, is something that we have had to accept. And we're optimistic that as we move on, the decisions would be a win-win arrangement for all concerned. So while we're not happy about what has happened, we still move on, and hopefully the best arguments and the best points will surface in the end.
Okay, now a month is gone and you have 2 more months left. There is talk within the conference to extend it. Considering the cost, Nigerians will most likely not want to have that kind of money being spent by delegates when they are not sure about how to implement whatever resolution that you can come up with. Are you sure that there is a mechanism to implement resolutions that your delegates will come up with in this conference?
With full certainty, when it comes to the first issue you raised about the extension, on the floor of the conference, it has only been raised as a concern that we would not want it to be extended, and we've had all assurances that we will not be there for longer than what was originally agreed upon, which was 90 days in total. And we are optimistic that we would be able to meet that time, particularly as you've mentioned. It's expensive, and a lot of the people who have been invited have had to put a lot of other things on standby because of the conference. So everybody is eager to get back to other things and to also deliver the best they can. About the question of implementation, our job is to present the best ideas we can and the best strategy for moving Nigeria forward, for cementing relationships and trying to make it a better home for everyone to feel more ready to put their full trust and love and patriotism into the country. The question of implementation, whether from the side of the politicians, whether Senate or going for referendum, that's really not our job. Our job stops at the end of 3 months where we present the best our synergy can come up with. What we hope is that the political will exists to implement these. So while we are all hoping that the time we spend will not just end up producing a document that will just pile dust on a shelf somewhere, there are talks within senators and a number of people who are trying to find ways of ensuring that the conclusions of this conference do see the light of day in form of policies that move the country forward.
Now, I understand that this week everybody were assigned committee membership, and it caused a lot of problems on the floor of the conference. What was the problem about? Why were people not satisfied with their committees?
I think, firstly, if you look at it, that you've got about 497 or so people, approximately 500 people, to put into 20 committees. The 20 committees covered so many issues. Some covered things that you would look and say, how could this all be covered within the time available? Other committees, people felt should be joined with other groups. Other people felt things like education should have a committee on its own. So you have disagreement, firstly, on which are the committees that should exist, which committees should be joined or merged together. So you have that issue. You also then had the issue of putting these 500 people in their various committees. And some topics were probably more attractive to others, other topics. In other words, some committees were more interesting, I think, to the majority than other committees. And so when people were asked to submit with
All right. I think we lost communication. We lost our phone communication with Lemu. We will try to reconnect with him and continue our conversation. I want to ask him about Boko Haram in northern Nigeria, what he thinks is responsible for the emergence of Boko Haram and the brutality of the activities currently in northern Nigeria. And then we will go into his speech, this famous speech he made on the floor. I want him to dissect that and see whether it's possible to convince people that he was speaking to believe in the content of that speech. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to reconnect with him and continue our conversation. So stay tuned.